entire staff. So you already know generally what BSX1 does, so BSX, just a quick overview. It's boating safety and auxiliary office, and there's 2 different staffs there. BSX1 is where it's here today for the support of the auxiliary, and BSX2 is for our recreational boating safety, which is run by Mr. Vern Gifford. And I know they work closely with one of my goals is to tighten that partnership between recreational boating safety, BSX2 and BSX1. There's already been some great conversation with some people have come already and asked me, hey, what about this? Can you help me with this? We're not getting the same information. And I need to hear that feedback so I can talk with my staff and we can tighten those lines of communication. So before we get, because I really want to get the questions out to you, I just want to do a quick introduction of the staff here. So as you know, Commander Edgardo Cruz, he is the division chief here for BSX1. Unfortunately, you only have, you counting the days down? I know her. Hey, see, he's already got there. So April 29th will be, he's retiring. He's done a great service here. So please, if you get your chance here to swim by, give him a handshake, buy him a beer, or do anything like that, please do. Commander Brad Winans will be coming in, replacing him. Unfortunately, he's not able to be here because he's at CG 711. He is, unfortunately, he's an aviator, so you're gonna have to deal with 2 of us up here. I get a little caught, yeah. So, but he'll be joining us as early as May 1st and as late as June 1st, which is a win. Usually during transfer season, you don't get someone till later in the year, and especially with NACON coming up in August. Hopefully, from what I'm hearing too, it's going to be built up with a lot of international support there. So we definitely need to get him on board sooner than later. So Steve Minatolo, I don't even think I need to give an introduction to him because I think his list there, you're just going to clap for him. So one of our new individuals is Lieutenant Chris Booth. Many of you have worked with him before. So he's been here for 2 years, but this is his first, like me, first Ntrain and NACON there. So he is joining us, though, from the Marine Safety Unit in Duluth, Minnesota, where he was a senior investigating officer, and him and his wife just had their 4th child back around NACON. So you weren't even going to be able to see him in NACON, so now you can see him here. So, all right. So moving down the line there, YN1 Samantha Tober, right there. Checked in about the same time, maybe a month or 2 different from with you and Lieutenant Booth there. But she's coming from the Coast Guard cutter Hollyhock, home ported in Port Huron. And for those who don't know, just the 1 year during the COVID, she was actually for a quarter named the enlisted petty officer of the quarter. So, I'm very blessed here to have such an amazing staff as I'm going through this there. But that just shows you the caliber of people that we're getting within BSX1. Mr. Steve Keel, he's been here for a while. You know, he was in there. So, there you go. And we got Mr. Zig Wilson here, who BSX1 finance specialist. And since our last one, Master Chief O'Connell has since retired. We can clap for him, though, because of that. So, but Master Chief Travis Park here is coming. He reported about the same time that I did. He's coming from Yorktown with a tremendous amount of experience, almost coming up on, he got a couple more years, he's going to be 30 years in the Coast Guard here. He's coming straight from the standardization team, which is we definitely needed his support and his knowledge there. You probably noticed a lot of those policy letters that just came out. That was a lot of his hard work. He just got thrown right into the fire and got into it. Especially there's a lot of aviation thing where he came up to me and was like, sir, like, I'm boasting here. I don't know this. It's like, you've got this down. And next thing you know, he took it over, and now he's an expert. Probably he's schooling me up on different procedures. So with that, sorry that was a little bit longer than I anticipated. So with that, I'm going to open up the floor to questions. All right. Yes, sir.
That we need to have an opportunity to refer the larger vessels to the appropriate authority, I would say. Do we have a mechanism to do that, or can we develop a mechanism to do that?
There was an email sent, I think you might have sent it several months ago, about the 65 foot that I sent up through BSX 1 and up through 2 on this. And Steve, if you recall this, we had a we had that email chain going about 65 foot or bigger vessels and being able to do inspections over VEs. Let me go back and check my email and see the responses I got on that, and then I can forward you the email with those responses. And I believe you did send, there was an email sent, and this was back in like November time period. So I could double check my email and get back to you on that and find out, because there was a response that was given by BSX 1 and 2 on specifically vessels over 65 foot being inspected.
And would you have any opposition to having a side-by-side on our I want a VSC form, which limits to 65 feet, of having some addendum on there, greater than 65 feet contact so-and-so, so we're out of the loop? We don't want to mislead anybody.
I would have a discussion with the floor on this to find out the answer to it, in addition to the forms, and I cannot recall who does the forms in the floor, and I've worked with them, they control all the forms, I've worked with them before. But we can work with them and look and see. I can't make any promises we can get the change, but if you don't mind just saying, hey, if we can make a change to the form, this is a recommended change to make.
Thank you.
Hey, Travis, it would come through IT.
That's what,
whether it's
yes.
a web form or a standard PDF form, Randy or Matt, depending on what form it is.
I'll offer this much. The philosophy that we've always gotten from our counterparts in BSX2 on the boating safety side is they want to see as many vessel safety checks as possible. Quite honestly, I don't think they care about the size of the vessel or anything like that. I mean, you wouldn't want to do a BSC on a Carnival cruise ship, right? But something that's a little larger than 65 foot is certainly fair game. And if annotating the BSC form so that it prompts a vessel examiner to watch out for a couple of special things, for that it is something we would want to do. I'm just saying, I mean, that's the way we're moving towards. Yeah, there should be no problem with doing a BSC on a vessel larger than 65 feet if the owner asks for it and we can do it, kind of thing. The VSC is not, we all know, right? It's non-binding, non-attributional. It's to educate the owner and let him go. So I think you'll see that in black and white. It's not there yet, but just basically to say, yeah, you know, it's over 65 feet, yeah, we can do that.
I would check one thing on that too, just and the reason why it's 65 foot is because you jump into a whole different category of regulations.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing too, is the person doing the inspection, do they even have the knowledge and certification to conduct that? And that would be another consideration to take into it, because you're looking at completely different regulation requirements. So.
I presented this, Matthew Meyer, 8 Eastern, I presented this question. I have quite a few vessel examiners that do houseboat rental fleets. And of course, most of the houseboats are over 65 feet, and they were allowed to do them several years ago. And then they found out that they were told they could not do 65 feet and over. So that affected the rental fleet quite a bit. So I checked into it, and what I got back was you can do over 65 feet as long as you did everything on the form. You were not allowed to go down into the holds, and you were not allowed to inspect anything that wasn't on the form. In other words, systems that were on vessels 65 feet and over. Now, personally, I don't know what that is, but they are then allowed to do exams for 65 and over if they stayed strictly to that form. And they wanted that in writing, so I had to get that in writing through sector. So what you're going to find out is you all can stand up there all day long and say, yeah, go ahead and do it, but they're not going to do it unless it's in writing, because they don't want that liability. So we need that in writing, and the stipulations. If you all say you can't inspect these systems because those are inherent to that length of vessel, and you don't go down into the holds to inspect anything, that's what we need in writing. So.
And so what I'm hearing is I think we have this currently in BSX, and I'll say there's a lot of things within BSX. If you see the staff right here and the workload that we have, so there's a lot of things. Those 8 policy letters, I want to say, how long has it been worked on? A couple of years, I think, before leading up to it, just to get those over. We have juggling a lot of things. But if this resonates where this is a high priority, this is the feedback that we know, so we can go back, take a look at that request of all the list. I think Steve cuts it off at like 100 of what I get to see. So, but there is a laundry list of stuff, and what resonates to the top is what we're working on. So if that's one of those things that we're hearing from you, that is something we will take back with NACO and the national staff and go through and say, this is what we heard. We're going to look at that, and we can readjust the priorities and move forward. Sorry,
Could we revise, can we work with you to revise the training maybe as part of the strategic plan for the following year? I mean, who will we work with to do that?
This is so you said you want to get into the strategic plan for.
I'm just saying that we could add if we expand the scope of the mission to help active duty, why couldn't we just revise the training to encompass those larger vessels so that we are properly equipped to address those concerns of that boat?
Should first change the BSC manual, right? Okay, we start there, and then the training tools flow out from that.
But we'll write that down and take it to discuss with NextCom to see if that brings up with our other list of priorities. So.
Hi, thanks. My question is related to some of the ever-increasing backlog of things that you have to deal with in BSX. And my question is this. Do you have, how many auxiliaries do you have that are able to help you? And is there something more we can do in terms of providing auxiliary support where they can perhaps pick up some of this backlog and help us get through some of these issues? You know, from a security clearance standpoint, et cetera, I've often said to our DIROCs, is there more we can do? And we have a lot of people who help out down there in Miami. What I'm wondering if we couldn't perhaps use auxiliaries some more in your office to help get through this backlog of ever increasing backlog of stuff.
That's a great question, and we've started doing some of that already. I know one of my other goals is to grow BSX 1 specifically, because we had, if you see, we've short staff here. We had 3 billets taken over in the past 8 to 10 years. We have an RP in for 1 additional one, and we've been short staffed by 1, so we've been gap 1 billet there. And we're strapped, pretty much the whole Coast Guard strapped for resources. So yes, there are some things that we've been utilizing for training, correct, Steve? Like, that we've been using auxiliary help there. So that is something that that's a great point, and some other things roles that we will continue. I know when Commander Winan steps in, I'll have him take a look at that too and say, hey, where are there things that we can look at? And the staff, I think, is already looking at that. But I don't know, Steve.
I'll offer first off, there's a body missing up here. Anybody notice besides us? And that's our training program manager. Had been a man named Doug Looper. And it's okay for me to tell you that he fell out of our staff about 8 months ago for medical reasons. And we're working basically gapped in his position since then. Lieutenant Booth, myself, and thank God for Jen Stack and Don Zinner helping us out and handling the training items. It's made life that much more difficult in our staff. We're in the throes right now of the civilian hiring process, which is like a root canal without Novocaine, but we're working on it, and by NACON, hopefully you'll see that extra body in front of you. And we've got 10 executive assistants to the chief director, like the administrative assistants to the directors in your regions that are assigned. We've got 10 auxiliaries that help us, AUX status stuff, training stuff, and general administrative support. that we rely heavily on that help us out. And they're basically other staff members with us.
So can I reiterate on that real quick? And your question is a great point, because yes, 22,000 auxiliaries, roughly 22,000 auxiliaries to complete operations and oversight of a lot of it, aviation and all the other programs. So Jen Alston, tremendous work with her almost every day with Ox Data. Roy Savoca with director of R, work with him on policies. Michelle Thornton, Larry Fletcher. These are people I talk to, if not daily, at least once a week. So I do get a lot of support from the auxiliary.
But it is a great point that that we always have to. And I just did an interview for the auxiliary for I forget. I think it's on a YouTube thing, and they say, well, what can we continue to do? And I think every day in every mission that pops up, we have to ask ourselves, what can the auxiliary do? Can the auxiliary be incorporated into this? I think, and I forget the slogan now. I meant to ask NACO. I think last year, Think Auxiliary, was that or Think Auxiliary? I can't remember that slogan. That's what we have to do, I think, every day here, and it's a great reminder for us to continue to do that. And if there's a role that you can see that we're floundering on, please, by all means, bring it up to us and, hey, we can really help you in this area.
So I think that one of the big challenges we're going to have is with OPFACs coming up, with the number of OPFACs available for us to be able to do surface operations. And I know that the Coast Guard takes some smaller vessels offline. It seems to get kind of donated to some different areas. Is there a way that we could actually get access to some of those, whether it's donated to the Coast Guard Auxiliary Association or otherwise? Because that certainly would help us do our job, as well as motivate some of the folks in the process.
So just so I can understand, so you're saying like facilities like an old 42-foot Coast Guard boat to be
Love
used.
the 41s, they're awesome. Got a couple of those
40.
in our inventory, but 87s. But yeah, any of the boats that are smaller crafts that they have, with some of the buoy side stuff that we can get a hold of.
I know that I've asked that question right when I stepped in, because I did a couple patrols, and that exact question came to me from a couple coxswains out there saying, hey, well, what about the old ones? And the way that the federal regulations go, I believe, and my staff, please bail me out if I'm going down the wrong, but they have to go to a GSA auction beforehand, and we can't, and there's I'm sorry.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
And we've been preaching this for a long time, actually. When it comes to facilities or Coast Guard property that's declared excess, as the captain was saying, yeah, by the book, it's supposed to first go through a pecking order of agencies that get priority to if they want or not, and then out to the general public. However, especially when it comes to boats, if you know of a Coast Guard unit that has a boat that's looking on the verge of declaring it excess, there's a way of getting the Coast Guard unit and the Coast Guard's boat manager together with the Coast Guard's property manager in an office called CG83, I think, up at Coast Guard headquarters. I could tell you her name, but I'm not an open forum kind of thing. But the Coast Guard property manager will work with the Coast Guard unit to marry up the request that the auxiliary has to the unit, says, I want this boat, and try to work it into, so that it is transferred to the auxiliary there before it goes out for open accessibility to all other agencies. That has been done. Your predecessors have done that. But yet, you have to be aware of it. Again, get together. If you know the boat's coming, get together with the Coast Guard unit that's got it. They're going to work with the Coast Guard's boat manager, and they're going to, and tell them. Bear in mind also, heads up, the director's supposed to be checking and making sure that this is all in place first. The unit that wants it, you better be ready to handle it. You better be ready to maintain it. You better be ready to operate it. Otherwise, it's a no-go.
Yeah, I mean, we have two 41s and a 44 that we take care of all the time, so that's not going to be an issue. We can certainly prove that out. So, yeah.
You still need the Valiant 50 cal on the belt, please.
Yeah. But
Thank you.
That can be done.
Thank you.
The infamous list in terms of, if you take away the congressionals, what are the three things you're working on right now? I know it changes, but can you wet our whistle in terms of what are the three biggies?
Let's see here. The AUX Integration Award, that's up there. I know we just had a congressional that we just actually feverishly worked on here, having to make sure the memo was typed up perfectly for the senator. So, trying to think, what was, and then I'm just thinking from out of the team. What's that? Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. There's COVID. That's the COVID. Trying to get the unvaccinated auxiliaries back in the in-person. We are we are, and I know NACO mentioned it, we are about 95% there. I'm going to mention it, I believe, at the national board, but there's, whether it be an exemption, an accommodation, or procedures to allow for unvaccinated members to be there. We have to get it all cleared by legal and get all buy-in, especially what happened with the incident back in December, I want to say. The risk was too high when that occurred. I think we're slowly getting on the downhill from the COVID-19. We're still going to have to probably put some sort of procedures in place before we lift that entire. So we are really close there. I would love to say which one it is, but just my luck, I will tell you, yep, this is what we're planning on doing, and I'm gonna get back to headquarters, and legal's gonna be like, nah, we're gonna go this way. So, and is there anything else? I'm sure I might have missed some. Yeah, let me look at the. Hold on a second. I've got a whole bunch here. I can kind of keep going down if you'd like. But those are generally the top three that I can fit right off the top of my head. So, thanks.
Auxiliary manual.
No, I didn't.
New auxiliary manual.
About the update? Where we're at on that?
Yes. And I can't say I didn't know it was coming. It's well off. Working on quite honestly, working on the auxiliary manual is a collateral duty in our office. And I can't farm that out. We can't farm that out. As much as we get help from national staff, and we get a ton, but not that baby kind of a thing. So I work on it on a catch-as-catch-can basis. The same thing with the other manuals in our shop that we own. And you want a guesstimate? It's not going to be in 2022. That'll be issued. We're shooting for 2023. Getting it through a concurrent clearance process in Coast Guard headquarters alone, we normally provide the offices that are commenting, which is every office in headquarters because it's so comprehensive, at least 30 to 60 days to review and comment. And then from there, we take the feedback, make the adjustments. So just running it through concurrent clearance is almost a half a year. So quite honestly, yeah, we're looking at into 2023.
Yeah, and that concurrent clearance, so I tried to avoid headquarters like the plague my entire career because I like being operational. I unfortunately got sucked into it, and of course, hey, we write this great manual, and this is before I even got to BSX. I was in CG4 in engineering. Oh yeah, we got this change, we already socialized, we put it on there, like, oh, you got to do the concurrent clearance process. I'm like, oh, a couple weeks or so. They're like, no, it lasted almost the entire time, and I started in August before I left, and it was finally through concurrent clearance in June and July. The reason behind that is there's 30 to 60 days to respond. So that's just to respond to them. Usually there's maybe some issues which you have to have follow-on meetings, and then if you can't resolve it at the lower level, guess what? It goes up the pecking order, and it's just, so I guess that's, Steve's been living that, I think, for how long now? So that time is, but in the end though, after what I've seen, it usually, at the end of the day, you're gonna have a better product because then you get everyone's input and are able to have everyone agree upon it, so. Thank you. Also, I'm noticing the session is being broadcasted live. Do we have any questions from the worlds of cyber? Want to include them as well in some of the questions. I'm looking back and.
There's a slight delay, so.
Okay.
See what's gonna happen.
Sounds good. Oh, we got it. Great.
Kathy Slayball, 9th Central. We're asking a lot of you all. What's on the top of your list of what you would like from all of us?
That's great. That's a great question. Actually, first off, for me as BSX, I just want you to all know that I am continually amazed day in and day out of any interaction I do with any of the auxiliary. And I know I probably sound like a broken record. I think I've said it a bunch of times, but thank you for all that you do. You're a volunteer service that we ask you to do something and you do that and more with a smile. I look back and wish some of our active duty folks would have the same type of motivation. So first off, thank you. I just want you to know thank you for all that you do. I would say help us with, and I say us, meaning the active duty folks, as far as the Chdirauxes and however you feel that you think that you can add value to the organization. And we talk about the integration piece. Because as NACO, I keep stealing his quotes because I'm no good at quotes there. But it's not your the auxiliary is not your dad's auxiliary, and it's going to continue to grow. And we're going to find new ways and roles of the mission for the auxiliary. So if we can get help, you can help us on the innovation piece, especially when this active duty award comes out to say. Because I guarantee you a lot of active duty folks, when they see this, they're going to be like, okay, how can I help integrate? Well, when they ask that question, I think it's a great opportunity for you to step in and say, oh, I can do this is for you. And it makes it a lot easier. And plus you'll have two minds thinking that. So I'll leave it on my staff too, because they probably are saying there's things that, I have a question, but first, because that's a great question. And I
say technology is one of the biggest ones in advancement, because who in this room still has a VCR in their living room? When DVDs came out, you said, I'm not getting the VCR. I'll stick with the VCR, to heck with the DVD. And then time has gone by, that VCR is probably in the attic or at a Goodwill, and you no longer have it anymore, and you have a DVD player. And that's the advances of technology, where you refuse to accept change, and then eventually you kind of conform to the change because of technology. And we're advancing in year 2022, and you know, my mom's 72, and she refuses to learn a cell phone, and she hates it, and she's stubborn in that way, and she doesn't really need it. I'll take care of her with it, but you know, learn to advance and not be too negative towards the technology and advances of the organization, but don't fall too far behind, because then it's going to frustrate you, and then you're going to lose out at the opportunity that existed before you. So that's what I would ask for the auxiliary.
Anyone else?
I'll say something quick. Readiness, the Coast Guard keep expanding all the missions, and every day I see like critical solicitation with my staff, names and that, so I have to put a good excuse not to send them to those critical solicitation. But you know, the missions keep increasing, and we need the auxiliary to be ready to field back on the active duty on some missions. So you know, we need you to be ready. We need you to have the training, and you need to be capable of come and help the active duty when we need you. And it seems to me nowadays that there's always something like either it's the southwest border or other missions that the Coast Guard need to take people from the active duty field, from units, move to those locations, and then someone needs to come and back up and fill those gaps. And the auxiliary is a presence that is always there at the units. That is easier to activate than the reserve, because going through the reserves always takes time, but you guys can come up and help immediately, and that's something that we need from you.
Yeah, I'd say a perfect example of that. I know we already had a program that was set in place there, but I think there was if you all remember the oil spill that was out in California, and we needed an interpreter. Well, I got an email at Sunday night. I saw it on my phone. It's about maybe 7 or 8 o'clock. I sent it to Commander Cruz thinking, oh, he'll just check in the morning. What does he do? He checks it like an hour, so I feel like a bad boss because I'm having him work on the weekends. He immediately sends an email to, I forget who it was. And then next thing I know, I'm on the phone on Monday morning with NACO, and there's already an interpreter that's in their car driving down there to go do that support. I mean, that right there is just, to me, shows just, I use that example all the time of like how, when they say, oh, well, your programs, how ready is the auxiliary? Well, Depends. Like, there's some things where, like that case in point, they were there. We had to actually hold them back and say, "Can you just turn around? We got to get our orders processed and so forth." And it turns out I got a BZ from I think it was Lieutenant Neubauer. I want to say that interpreter cracked the case for the Coast Guard on that just from his skills in there. I mean, so that just shows how critical you are to the Coast Guard, and that willingness and motivation. Like I said, that's where a lot of the thank you. I can't say thank you enough. I mean, that specific example is happening day in and day out in the auxiliary. So, Steve, did you have something you want to?
Yeah, I would offer you this. Knowing the greatest challenge, you say, and this particularly to the district commodores, because you're dealing with the membership down to the flotilla level, leadership. What kills our head of steam very often in our office, Captain mentioned like congressionals, or letters to the president or something, or letters to the commandant. And I am not saying we're trying to put a lid on that action if somebody wants to take it. Absolutely not. I'm telling you though, as one of my predecessors long ago had put it, when we get those, just about everything comes to a screeching halt that we're working on, because we have to address a complaint, a criticism, a concern that's been elevated to that level. We're given time limits. They're usually pretty strict, on the order of 5 working days, something like that. And in that time, we have to figure out what's going on back at sea level. So we immediately turn to the directors of auxiliary, who in turn reach down through the chain and figure out what's going on and what's the real root of the problem and the like. And sorting all that out takes time and it takes effort, and quite honestly, it takes us away from working on the other projects. So the leadership training and the leadership challenge, I wish I had a solution. I don't, but you're asking how to help kind of a thing. Try to keep pounding that message about resolving problems at the lowest level, addressing teamwork, promoting that, problem solving rather than head knocking, that sort of a thing, pays dividends for us in the long run.
Yeah, and I know I said short resource, but one thing I've noticed at headquarters as being a 06 office chief, you see who we have here in BSX1. It's like it's total, 7 or 1. I'm trying to think if we could go on. And a lot of times the whole entire office is spun off on these congressionals, where in other offices they've got 40, 50 strong, and at a minimum in there, and that specific issue they don't have the same realm where we have 22,000 auxiliaries there where some of these problems come up. So that's where I would just bear with us when we go through those, and if we have to stop for that, there's usually a reason that. So sorry for making excuses of that. And I see that there's a question coming up there, new programs coming to the flotillas. I think that I just looked right here. There's a whole laundry list of programs. This is coming from the audience out there, and that's being videotaped. So there's a list we call merchant of some issues or some programs, like the Merchant Mariner Credentialing Task Force. That was one that's out, and I've got like a list that goes all down to the most recent one, where I had an email yesterday for help within the or it would be in the headquarters area to help with voting assistance program, to Casualty Matters program. And it's just and I think in some of the meetings here, I know Commander Cruz has mentioned, even Steve says, it seems like every week we get another request for programs. So as far as pinpointing each one, I can't say exactly, unless there's something that you all think of right off the top that would be good to mention for the flotillas.
I've got to say, please promote checking out the National Help Wanted site that you have, because it seems like we're forwarding requests to that from our office. We're getting the requests from other program offices who are, seeing a light bulb go on and asking for auxiliary support for them, and we're filtering them. I mean, we'll put the ad together, but most of them we're seeking to have posted on the Help Wanted site. So folks really ought to be checking that, because there are a lot of new opportunities coming up, really wide variety, as well as we work with the directors directly, who will then work with you. for locally centered types of requests for assistance. But yeah, there are a lot of help wanted ads coming your way.
And there's one thing that, because my old office, I was in the change management office within engineering, and it was modernizing pretty much all of the engineering modernization for shore infrastructure. And one of the things we did was support equipment. So that's one of the things we put on there is the Coast Guard right now is going around to all Coast Guard units to do a survey of support equipment. And that's the cranes, forklifts, anything that's related to yellow gear. That's from just aviation, we call that. And doing inventory, doing training, you name it. Guess what? They don't have resources for it. The program's supposed to be X amount of million. They didn't get all the money they want. So I think that that was one thing that was on there, and that when that was brought up to the CG4, they're like, we can ask the auxiliary to help for this? I'm like, sure. There's actually someone, I think there was the first person who replied was in Jacksonville. I want to say was a OSHA certified instructor on the forklift there. And that particular program modernization comes from, if you remember the horrible incident where the warrant officer was killed up in Alaska from what was it? Was it the Healy? No, not the Healy. Hickory. Thank you. And that, I mean, and when the Coast Guard took a look at it, if you've seen any of that, it's the Wild West out there. I went out as an aviator and saw this of what was going on our buoy yards, not on the buoy decks, but in the yard itself. It was almost like safety was on the boat was incredible. Then you got on the pier. So that's where one of the things that we're trying, like that's another big program that I'm putting a plug in for my old office there. I know the commander that took over for me was like, we need as many auxiliaries as you can. So. Yeah, so next one's flotilla access to GSA surplus like Civair. I do not know.
I think that's along the same line of what I was talking about a little earlier about marrying up requests for boats with units that have them. GSA, the General Services Administration, and surplus, yeah, they make the rules for excess property and the like, and we have to live by them. I know a lot of you probably still talk amongst yourselves about the pecking order and how the auxiliary is so low on it, kind of a thing, compared to other agencies. But that is static and is not changed. In fact, I got thrown out of a legal officer's office once, basically being told, you've asked too many times about it, that sort of a thing. GSA sets the rules, we live by them, but like I said, there are other ways. If you know of Coast Guard excess or property that's units looking to declare as excess, get the OIA, whoever owns that stuff, married up with the Coast Guard property manager at Coast Guard headquarters, and they can work that way towards getting it in your hands.
And hopefully the more that we can be side by side, gold and silver force together, that type of knowledge you'll be able to get, and then proceed. Because if you don't have that connection together, then you might not know they're getting a new boat and they're getting rid of it. So maybe that's something you can help stress at on the deck plate level. Excellent questions here.
How about the drone program? We have auxiliaries out there that have spent a lot of money on their own to become FAA or whatever it is certified, paid a lot of money for their drones, and are already volunteering for other law enforcement agencies doing chemical spill, whatever it is they want them to do, but yet they can't volunteer for the Coast Guard. What are your plans for the drone program?
So that's an excellent question. I know that's one thing that was brought up, and we had to put kind of, I wouldn't say stop, but I would say maybe a stall or pause on it, because there's a lot of liabilities. There's a whole bunch of things that we need to know, and I don't want to put Commodore Kirkwood on the spot, but I know we talked a little bit about that too. It just there's a lot of what we don't know, and we want to get something established in place before we release that. I tell you what, I've got my own drone. I've got a DJI something whatever that I use for filming of kids' sporting events and so forth like that. So I know the capability. It's an awesome capability. I just want to make sure that whatever we do it the right way, even if it takes time. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, it's going to probably take time for us to vet. And the Master Chief might have some, and I might have.
With the SRU program, the drone program, we don't own that program at the auxiliary level. That is owned by CG 7114. So the aviation, they have their own drone program that the Coast Guard owns. We have to fall under that policy. So because we have to fall under that policy, we can't go outside of it. So auxiliary included, there's a lot of security features. So just so you can kind of have an understanding about it is, if you used your own personal drone and you're accessing it and you're doing an op, the second you, DJI is one of the worst with it too. The second you tap in, this is unclassified, 26 adversaries now have access to everything you see. So China being one of the top ones. So now they use that to gather intel to do their stuff, and they're coming right in. You have no idea, they're backdooring in, and there's 26 adversaries that they have. And so they don't want you doing a Coast Guard op and going out and doing that, and then our adversary seeing it. So the drones that the Coast Guard has, which there's Coast Guard units, SRU units throughout in certain areas, you're going to fly their drone. They'll teach you how to be a pilot, teach you how to be an observer. They own that program. They determine if you could come into it, going through your DROC's office, and that is more secured type of drone. And that's the reason why. So we don't own it. They established a policy. We have to abide by their policy. And that's the reason why we can't make any changes.
Thank you for giving more of the in-depth as opposed to we're putting a pause on it, Master Chief. That's why you're a Master Chief. So. Do you have any other? We've got 17 minutes here. I think we got some.
Peter Jensen, NACO PS. Given the rising world tensions between us and our adversaries, is it conceivable there might be an increase in the need for auxiliaries taking part in harbor patrols and other such infrastructure?
That's a great question. I have not heard of any requests that have come down. I could give you my personal opinion of that over a beer maybe, but like that's not the kind of, but so with that, I don't think we've heard anything regarding that.
You got to draw the line too between security and safety.
Understood.
So when you start talking about port security patrols and doing it, your mom patrols could do it, you could go out and you could observe and report, but the extent above that when it comes to port safety and port security, it's never going to happen. You know, Commandant would never sign off on something like that because it's too high risk.
See you in the bar, Captain.
Yeah. We got 15 minutes. Come on, free shot on goal here. Are you trying to get a bomb dropped on us? Steve? Commander Cruz, you've been in this job now for longer than I have, so.
No, just a comment, just make sure you're ready because, in this ever-increasing world, operational world, Coast Guard resources are very limited, and with the condition overseas and what happened in Ukraine, it just takes 1 minute for everything to change. And if Coast Guard extends to do other missions for the country, then someone needs to come up and back up, the Coast Guard missions and help us do like the safety checks and inspections, and that's what for you guys, to be ready, to be accessible. Because we never know when things are going to change.
I think live by our motto there, semper paratus. I mean, just be always ready. Just don't know when we're going to have to react and pivot. There's I think the pandemic's taught us that, and now things that's going on in the world right now is teaching us that as well. So,
Be the force multiplier.
yes.
I'm trying to fill time, sir, okay?
What's that? I try to. Okay.
Well, one of the things that was mentioned that routinely has become a problem because of the antiquated equipment, the ID card software, and I know our Chdiraux is constantly fighting that battle. You mentioned that there's a program to assimilate that using software under BSS. How high of a priority is that?
So as far as how high of a priority that is we put in for, did we officially put in for it last year? We didn't, because we didn't have the cost of it, but we've got it in for fiscal year 23. Hopefully we get it, but we don't know with the current budget construct. You've got.
Yeah, we put a request on fiscal year 23, I believe, but that was not approved. We put on a back order this year for $1.8 million to expand Oxdata to including the ID card and other systems. And I need to speak with Stephen Otto and SIG if the budget for fiscal year 23 is on the table, so we can maybe put like one additional light item in our budget, asking for an additional $100,000 to pay for this upgrade to Oxdata. And that's the third plan is just to see if we can get into next year's budget.
Bottom line is we're gonna have to do that soon. Just don't know how soon. I'd say it's going to be we don't want to say a failure before we have to get it done. But of course, it elevates our priority to get that done. Hence why immediately when that came, I was like, let's put that on the backlog, because you never know when it comes to, July, August timeframe. Hey, do you have $120,000 to spend? And if we have everything in the system, boom, here we go. We've got it, and we can get it and get it out to the field there. So, but I know that is definitely, it's an issue that's, I guess you'd say, a slow fire that's slowly getting higher and higher, and then by the time it gets to a failure mode, unfortunately, that's as I've been in the government long enough to know that when you show failure, usually that's when you get resources. So hate to say that's, but.
Thank you.
So okay, so AUX members more access to Coast Guard NIMS. Is that okay. Training. So it's got to be courses. So more training then for, and what was the last? More ICS training. Is that what I'm hearing? Asking. Training. Yeah, that's the DHS, isn't it?
Yeah, I would just offer, nothing prevents anybody from taking ICS courses available through Department of Homeland Security, FEMA's websites, that kind of a thing, and you can build up your background and your course load as much as you'd like. Oxdata is not capturing every single ICS course that's out there. I doubt it ever will. Not necessary, and we've got other priorities for it. I know that seems to be the question that goes along with this is, okay, I want to take the course, or I've got the ICS under my belt, and now I want it in Oxdata, but not necessarily so. But again, nothing prevents folks from taking all of them, and nothing prevents you from trying to get it on record, submitted to the director, put it in the service jacket, that kind of a thing, and one of these days, maybe the code will be captured in Oxdata too. There are a lot already. I mean, in Oxdata, Coast Guard relevant, that's where we start first, but not the whole universe, not yet.
Steve, just to clarify, you mean IS, FEMA IS?
IS,
not ICS courses. Auxiliaries are eligible for ICS courses, and those are in Oxdata too for capture.
All right, are there any, we've got a question back here?
Yeah, we've got a question that just came in online. Will auxiliary IDs ever be considered a federal real ID from a compliancy perspective?
The answer, I guess, from my staff is no. So they're already on top of it. See, that's why they're so they make me look so good here. So.
Thank you.
All right, we got 9 minutes. Oh, good.
There we go. Question about the AUX LMS system. So we know that it's an old system, and most of the courses that are there are also over in our online classroom. But I've heard some conflicting things that the current system is going to be replaced from the Coast Guard side, their learning management system, but it's unclear on whether or not the auxiliary will have access to that new system. I know I've heard it's licensed, and so there's some open questions there. Do you have any information on the status of that program?
Get back and
Okay.
some insight on that.
Okay, please do.
So in my recent conversations with Forcecom, they, similar to what you're saying in regards to the Coast Guard LMS sunsetting and a new system being brought online, they're exploring different options on what that replacement may be, and nothing is concrete in that yet. But one thing they do know is that auxiliary equities need to be answered, hence why I've been on the phone calls with them trying to determine exactly what that means. They don't have a concrete answer on that, how that's going to work yet either. But to your concern, ma'am, that it is on their radar for inclusion, whatever the answer may be. And there is a price tag, like you mentioned, with licenses and whatnot. So that could be prohibitive for some decision making that they have to make at that level.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have just a quick question. Kim Cole with Prevention. I've been hearing rumors that the Harbor Safety Patrol for the active duty is coming back. Is there a possibility for the auxiliary Harbor Safety Patrol to come back again as well?
I'm sorry, what you said, Harbor Safety Patrol?
Harbor Safety Patrol. It's a former PQS that we had in the auxiliary that was stood down. But I have been hearing rumors that it is going to be coming back with the active duty, and I just wonder what the possibility is if the auxiliary would be able to, if it came back, could the auxiliary be able to bring their version back as well?
I think that's a good question. We could probably take back and look at it and get an answer to you. I'm looking over, Master Chief.
Harbor Safety Patrol, are you talking on prevention side where they walk the harbor?
No, they would.
Because that's not a mission that boat forces conducts with boats when it comes to a PQS item. That's not a PQS that's ever existed in the Coast Guard for boat crew qualification or coxswain qualification.
Okay, maybe they had it as a different name. I was talking with a lieutenant that handled the pollution response, and he had told me that it was Harbor Safety Patrol in the auxiliary.
Okay,
So.
we're talking HARPATs, which is a designation of
HARPATs, excuse me.
So a HARPAT is a designation that can be conducted by any coxswain in the Coast Guard, depending on if they're going to mount a MAW, which is a machine automatic weapon on the bow or the stern of the boat. So that would make it a determination on the HARPAT being conducted by the active duty. It has to be a tactical coxswain. So that was an advanced certification above standard coxswain. How an auxiliary would get that HARPAT and do it, that's where we go back to the safety versus security.
Right, and I think we're on two different.
Yeah.
Hey, Master Chief, I think you're talking about the old Marine Safety Qual, the harbor patrol that the MSDs used to do.
Yes.
We'll have to get with Coast Guard response on that, because they would own that, right, Ed?
We'll have to figure out who's the owner of the other.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be in one of the prevention fields. It's probably more response.
Thank you.
Because MSDs on
They're doing it.
Marion Parrish from D17. I'm the guy that yelled out Hickory. So I have three things to discuss briefly. One has to do with how can we help you. What I heard was you guys think, and ladies think about this all the time. What I would suggest is, what do you need? A short gap analysis to backfill those three people and throw it out there. You know, sir, that we have a plethora of things that people can do. I also wondered about outsourcing, other than anything that has to do with security, obviously. But outsourcing, if you need proofreaders, if you need people to help write things, there's a multitude of things out there. The other one has to do with a sticking point where we are, the night qualifications. You know, we're running up very shortly on no night, sir. and the water's still hard. So we are scrambling to figure out how to do that. So just some thoughts to the Master Chief on that.
Yeah, on that, I believe the new qualification will have an enhanced night operations PQS that they have to, you have, you know, people, new cousins and both will have to comply with that. I believe people who already have the qualification will be grandfather. I believe we still have to talk about how to do the currency requirements, if that's going to be part of the currency requirements, but it's something that we are working right now on the new qualification to have a bigger role on night operations, because we never know if you might be part during the daylight, but if something happens, you get diverted to a mission, you might be operating during the night.
I understand that. I'm just trying to figure. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I can't hear either. How do we do the training? The thing is, we're probably out there at 2 o'clock in the morning to get the dark in order to do the training, to do the qualing, to get the training to do it. Don't expect an answer right now. I just want to throw it out there because those are questions that I get from our people. The other one has to do with the finance issue that BSX may not have anything to do with. One of the concerns is we didn't know that. I got deep into the Coast Guard without ever knowing that the reimbursement was not coming. Now, I don't know where that disconnect was, but we did not know that that was a possibility until it was a fact.
So I know that the current financial FSMS issue, as you've seen, said, okay, the cutoff date was going to be October, and what we even active duty said, hey, it's going to be ready November 15th. Guess what happened? That went up to the timeline to November 15th. Something came out and said, sorry, it's going to be December 7th or something. I think it was, no. Then it got pushed back and kept getting pushed back. I mean, I think we have a laundry list of how long it's getting pushed back to the point where it's an issue throughout the entire Coast Guard. And it's actually an issue even for the other side, for BSX2, which is our grants right now. We just failed an inspection for the grants, the $120 million in grants that we have to give out, because we have to give them out by February 1st. And I'm probably going into too much detail of that, but it's hurting us all around, hence why there's an immediate financial FSMS task force team where they're pulling active duty folks from the field and from wherever to put together this task force so they can start getting after the backlog of items. So we know it's an issue. We actually, in all of our read-aheads to all the flags that are coming here, we all know it's an issue. It's gotten to the point where it's briefed up at the commandant's level. Hence why we got this task force. And actually, if it wasn't for and this shows you how important the auxiliary is on our senior leadership side, how they view the auxiliary. I was talking to one of my classmates who's the captain of the finance center. He was up briefing I think the commandant and the vice commandant on the issues, and the first question that came out of the vice's thing was, have you consulted with the auxiliary? He's like, I'll take notes, and he calls me back afterwards like, hey, can the auxiliary help with this and stuff? And of course, if he would have asked, I think maybe 6 months ago, I think we would have helped out now, but he's an extremis right now. So with trying to, but that is being felt by the entire, I know for self, I've got a travel claim that from October that still hasn't been reimbursed. So it's I hate to say it got pushed back. We're trying to work it. We've actually even elevated what are the priorities, and in my mind, we have a whole, I think Master Chief's been working diligently with the fiscal year 21 patrol orders that, I think that all got left off and they're having to manually input that, and we've been on conference calls even at this time. I think Steve, you said we were supposed to go do a site visit, and their exact response was, no, you guys will be there at 1300 because they're getting flag level pressure on their side of the house, not on our side of the house. So that just shows the importance of it. Wish I could say that I had a timeline of it. I do not, and I think even the timeline that I would have as you've seen from history there, might not be, they want to promise something that's not going to happen. So does anyone, I don't know, for my teams, do you have anything more to add to that? I know it's a, what was your first question, question there too? I forget, except what?
Let us know what you need instead of you having to decide, well, how we fit, we being the auxiliary.
Oh, and that's right. You were talking about the gap analysis. So it's funny because the gap analysis, that's one thing we talked up the NextCom is that's one thing that they're, and I don't want to speak outside of NextCom here, but I think that's one thing that we're working on because that will pinpoint what areas that we as opposed need to want. So. We've gone over now, I see, a minute and 37 seconds, a minute, 39 seconds. Yeah, you guys would be like, oh, you're buying us the beers then since you hold it up there, so. Don't quote me on that, though. It's recorded, that's right. Are there any last minute questions? And if you don't want to ask now, you can always come grab me on a sidebar and ask that, so. Well, thank you very much for everyone's questions and interaction here. So.